Hello again. I have already uploaded on my YouTube channel a couple of complete games where the Danish Gambit is essayed and one or two conclusions to other Danish Gambit games in the form of problems. What we have here is yet another game with the Danish Gambit, and I do hope that Carl Schlechter is not up there in the celestial heavens watching, because although I'm sure that he'd agree that White's play in this is pretty useful, he will be disappointed that his defence to the Danish Gambit is perhaps not quite that convincing. I'll leave you to judge for yourselves as we go through this. Let's just look at the first few moves of the main line in the DG. So, of course, the pawn comes off. This is all standard play in the DG, by the way, as I'm sure that you're aware. There, he takes here, and we take back, and that is the standard position after White's fifth move. Now, Carl Schlechter's defence to this, which he popularised and practised, is that d5, and of course we take here, and then he defies this excellent defence. I take my hat off to him. It's very good because, and I've mentioned this on the other games, that if you take here, of course, you take back, the queen comes down, the bishop check and picks up the queen. It is advantageous for black in that line, so I eschewed that in the second full game that was uploaded to YouTube, and I did the same with this one. I'm not going to go down that bishop f7 route, knight c3, and now you are threatening bishop f7 because the fact is it's all covered. You could get away with it in the sense that if you did it and he took back and you came here, bishop b4, there'd be no check, the knight is in the way, so that solves that little problem. So what black does is he plays knight on b to d7 to make sure that you don't do that, and I'm not going to. So I played my move here, which is, I think, pretty useful, where you are renewing the threat on f7. Now, in that other game, of course, my opponent played knight c5, which can cause complications, but he soon discovered that there was a line which refuted it. And coincidentally, a similar line is not perhaps going to refute black's play here, but set black some challenging questions, which in this game he didn't manage to answer. So let's continue with this. The correct continuation is to take the bishop here, and then we take the knight back. Now, knight c5 straight away here is inadvisable because of queen g3, and you're threatening knight c7, you're threatening the pawn down here. So you play c6 in order to prepare it. Knight f4 is the best move here because you want to cover d3, as will be seen. So now knight c5 attacking the queen, that is the right moment for it. And the queen comes back to here to guard the e-pawn. Just take a look at that position. That is after 11, queen c2. Now black plays here. In this particular position, you have to be very careful if you're white, because if you're lulled into the sense that you can get away with this, you can't. It's not that good. That is to be avoided. That is a bit of a Danish Gambit in reverse by black. And I'll put some analysis in the comments in due course to that, but I'll leave you to look at that and explain to yourselves why bishop g7 is not that advisable there. And what is much better than that is the move that I played in this game, which is e5. And that turns the tables on black. He's not expecting you to block the bishop, but he now has a problem with his own bishop. So how does he deal with it? Well, there's only one real way that he can deal with it other than retreating it, and he doesn't really want to do that. So he plays to here. Incidentally, taking here and then taking back and playing queen to e7, you can, with knight f3 or queen e2, you can get by. There's an annoying knight d3, but king f1 solves the problem. It is best to deal with it like this, and he's pinning the pawn against the king, so there's every reason for black to think that that's okay. So white continues classically with knight f3 covering that pawn. Now here you have to be a bit careful that you don't play bishop to g4. It looks okay, but it's not all that good. Why would you say it's not all that good? Well, for the simple reason that white can castle, and then he's threatening this bishop, and the bishop would have to move out the way, and there are opportunities, what with knight maybe coming to d4. It's, I think, inadvisable, but again, it's one to check out yourselves. Eventually I'll put some notes on the comments box to that effect. In the meantime, just have a good look at it. What also might work here, incidentally, is rook to there. And in that position, of course, you could afford to allow the knight to go take back, and it would open the file down to the king. He would then have to castle long, but in so doing, of course, he's losing his bishop because you're going to eventually get it back. So that is one to think about. So let's have a look. That's the position after white's 13th move, knight f3. He chose to castle. And so white castles as well. And now, of course, this pawn is no longer pinned. So what does black do here? Well, he plays bishop c7. Now what do we do here? Just take a good look at that position. That is a study in itself, because it's so reminiscent. For anyone who's looked at my second full game on YouTube, you'll remember what happened at about this stage. Well, yes, it's happening again, bishop a3, and what we're doing here with this move is we are admittedly taking it away from its natural a1 to h8 diagonal, but we are pinning this knight. So what does black do to resolve it? Well, let's look at what he shouldn't do, first of all. If he plays bishop b6 to cover that knight, then we play here, and quite simply black loses a piece. So that would be the loss of the game at once. So that is ostensibly no good. Now, should he play here, like that, bishop takes e5, my analysis runs as follows. Bishop takes c5, winning a piece and attacking his queen and pinning it against the rook. So he has to come here, bearing in mind that this bishop is attacked as well. So you take the bishop, he takes here, and then we play knight to d3. The queen moves anywhere you like, and then bishop takes f8. And if you look at the material there, you'll see that we have won a rook and two minor pieces in exchange for a knight and a pawn. So not a very happy choice at all, is it? So what we'll do is we'll put all of this back. This is really why e5 is so good, because it does set black a lot of problems. And that is the position after 15, bishop a3. We've tried bishop b6 and it loses a piece. We've tried taking the pawn here and that doesn't work. The only move that he has is b6, which is nowhere near good enough either. This is why I'm just wondering if white does have an ideal line here, and let me know your thoughts on this. So we can afford to play a quiet move here, rook on h2 e1, and this avoids any possibility of bishop a6 hitting the rook, and we're also adding now to the defense of this pawn and looking at e6 at some point. So black plays here. I looked at this, and my opponent may have looked at it. I intended to play this with the idea that if he takes here, you take, and it's looking quite nice down at h7. He didn't play bishop g4, he played bishop e6. I think he wanted to stop any question of the e-pawn marching. He didn't manage it, as you'll see. So I played here, knight to d4, and I'm hitting this pawn here. He plays queen to d7, relinquishing his protection of the knight on c5. He was probably hoping here for taking like this, take back, queen takes, and then bishop to here. And that would be quite good for him, I think you'll find. Analyze that by all means and see what you make of it. But I didn't play that. I didn't really want to take that knight. In spite of him moving away, it's still pinned against the rook. This is the problem with black's defense here, as I'm sure you'll agree. So that is after 1794 and then queen d7 to protect this pawn, and think that I might fall into that one. Well, no, I didn't. So what did I play? Well, I played rook on a to d1. And you see what you're threatening here is all sorts of things, because you're on the d line, aren't you? And this rook here is more than adequately protected. His knight is still pinned. You're double threat on this if you move this and then attacking the queen. So how does he resolve that? Well, what he did is he played here, bishop to d5. Any good? Well, you must be the judge of that. I think at this stage, e6 is worthy of consideration, which, just for the record, is that. I considered it, but I thought it might be a wee bit early to play it. So what did I play instead? Just take a good look at that position and see if you can decide what white ended up playing on his 19th move. This is a win in 30 moves. Well, I took here. Knight c6. And I'm taking full advantage of the fact that his bishop is pinned. So what did he play in reply to that? Well, he took the knight. He's no choice, really. And so what's so good about that? Well, you've won your pawn back, you've equalized the pawns 3 each, and now you've taken there, and just look at that position. Black is already much weaker. So how does he resolve this? Because ostensibly e6 is going to come with the threat of, say, rook h5 or rook g5. There are enormous possibilities. This knight, incidentally, it's double pinned now. Not only is it pinned against the rook, but if it moves, he loses his queen. So this knight is, he might as well not have it. The only good thing about it is that it protects the black queen from being taken, but nothing else. And this pawn is adequately protected. So what does he play? Well, he played a spite move here, which on the face of it looks pretty good, but it's not all that good. What he's hoping for, of course, is the knight will move and then he can take the rook. So how did I respond to that? Well, I accepted the challenge. I played knight h5, because what he's overlooked here is that if he now takes the rook, his king and queen are forked. Not very pleasant, is it? So what does he do? Well, he played here to try and give some protection at f6, which he realizes now is quite weak. So how did I handle that? Well, I played here. I'm now taking advantage of the fact that he's opened his king up. Oh dear. So how did he reply? Well, he played quite naturally king h8, which is to get it off the pinning line. I don't think he has anything else. The major problem for him, though, now is that it does enable e6 to be played. And look what is in the offing. Bishop b2, coming back to b2. So what does he do there? Well, he plays here, giving himself a flight square on h7. And I played here. Talk about taking the 7th rank. Akiba Rubinstein would be pleased, wouldn't he? Even if Karl Schlechter wouldn't be. So, what do we do now? That's after 24 rook d7. Can you see the conclusion to this game? Well, white is clearly threatening bishop b2 check. And that would be mate on g7 with the rook, eventually. So, in fact, there could be a slight windmill theme here with the back and the forth, but he doesn't want to go into that. So he gives up his bishop by bishop e5. So white, of course, says, yes, please. I'll temporarily block what's going on down here. No problem. Rook e5. What now? Well, he plays here. Rook on a to e8. Incidentally, you may pick up on how queen a4 is a possibility. What is he wanting to do? He's threatening check down here, rook there, mate. So it might be possible there for white to just have to take that, come back, but he's already way ahead in material and he's dangerously threatened down here, so that wouldn't really be a problem. So rook on a to e8 is probably the best of a bad bunch. So how did I play there? Well, of course, I now played bishop b2, and clearly if you move this, he's right in it, isn't he? So he played rook f6, not wanting to be right in it. And of course, I accepted a free rook, knight f6. He thinks, of course, losing material is better than being checkmated, which of course it is, yeah. So what did he play there? Well, he's threatened with checkmate on h7, isn't he? So he has no option but to take this rook, queen to d7. So what did I play? Well, I took his queen. I don't think there's any problem with that. And he's in all sorts of problems there. Really terrible position. There's no doubt about that. He's being threatened with so much. It's just so ridiculous, isn't it? What should he do? Well, he should have resigned, but this, again, as we agreed in these 30-minute games, there'll be no resignation. It'll be right to the end. So what does he do there? It is resignable. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He can't do anything. If he tries to save that rook, then really you can play rook. If he moves the rook out the way, for instance, you can just play this, can't you? And then you're threatening rook h. You're threatening to expose. So really, he had no option. What he did is he played here. Now, after 28, king to g7, I'll set you a little problem. White to checkmate in 2 moves. And what I'll do is I'll upload a short in due course with the solution to this. So take a good look at that position and see if you can find out how white checkmates in 2 moves. And all the very best to you, and goodbye for now.